Our gospel reading today is from Matthew, the 20th chapter. It's called the parable of the vineyard owner and workers. Listen to this parable. Jesus said to the disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into the vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right.' So they went. When he went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. And about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around. He said to them, 'Why are you standing here idle all day?' And they said to him, 'Because no one has hired us.' He said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, 'Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first.' When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now, when the first came, they thought they would receive more. Now, when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, 'These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat.' But the landowner replied to one of them, 'Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last.'" Help us, God, as we seek to interpret what this means for our lives. Well, you know what? Maybe we should retitle that, "The Parable of the Poor Businessman." I mean, with that kind of business model, he's not going to stay in business very long. Everyone's going to show up at 5 o'clock and get the daily wage. You know, I love capitalism. I was an economics major in college at Muhlenberg, but early on, I learned the value of money and what I could do with money. I mean, I had newspaper. I delivered the morning newspaper, the Morning Call, and then I delivered an afternoon paper called the Times News. And building up a relationship with my customers. In the summertime, they hired me to do their lawn work. So I was doing lawn work business too as a young kid. This time of year was chestnut season, the chestnuts. We had 2 huge chestnut trees in our backyard. And my brother and I would bag chestnuts by the pound and go door to door. And there were days when we wanted to make money, and we saw those chestnuts up there in the tree, but they hadn't fallen yet. So you know what? We'd get brooms and we'd get buckets and we'd get footballs, and we'd be throwing it up at that tree to knock these chestnuts down so we could get some more money. I soon learned, capitalistic thinking here, that we lived right beside the church. My dad was the pastor, and I realized, you know what? We don't have to go door to door. We got a very captive audience on Sunday mornings. Let's just set up shop out front of the church on the Sunday morning. It lasted one Sunday. That was it. I don't think my dad wanted any part of that. My senior year, going into college, my senior year, I took an ad out in the paper. I wanted to do something different during the summer of my senior year. And I took an ad out in the Times News for furniture refinishing, something that I like to do. I probably did it in springtime, and I got a job. I got one job. That's it, one job. But it lasted the whole summer. This guy brought by an old wooden motorboat. I don't know if you can, like on Golden Pond, you know, a motorboat, all wooden motorboat, and he wanted it refinished. I had to do the inside and the outside. It sat in my parents' garage all summer long as I refinished that. I liked money from a very young age, and I like to make money. In college, when I was a semester abroad, I had a professor named Dr. Paul Ballantyne for a world economics class, and he started every class with the same saying. He said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every class. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And you know, he's right. In a capitalistic society, someone pays. Somebody pays. It costs something. Everything has a price. Now we know that capitalism is not a perfect system, and there right now are some signs that people want to improve American capitalism. I listened to a podcast, Harvard Business Review. It's called After Hours, and they just had a great episode on reimagining capitalism and the power of capitalism to fix the things in our world, even climate change. But it was a few weeks ago in our adult class, two of our former members, John and Tracy Grossenbacher, who happened to be in our class this morning at 9 o'clock, they told the class about something called conscious capitalism. And so I've researched conscious capitalism, and on the homepage of conscious capitalism, this is what it says. It says, elevating humanity through business begins with knowing why your company exists. Without this, you have no compass to find and stay focused on your true north. Businesses should exist for reasons beyond just making a profit. We see profits as necessary means to achieving your purpose, not as an end in and of itself. Capitalism works. We know that. And I'm sure conscious capitalism could be an improvement. You know, one of the most destructive aspects to my relationship with God is capitalism. In capitalism, everything is a transaction. I commodify everything. Everything costs something, and there's no such thing as a free lunch. Rings in my head from Dr. Paul Ballantyne. You know what? You may not have liked that parable I read to you today. Maybe you call it unfair. It's just not fair that they would be paid the same. Well, join all of us who read that in the parable, who see the world through capitalistic eyes. We like a transactional God, a transactional landowner, vineyard owner, a transactional God that works according to our rules, and we don't see those rules played out in that parable. We don't want God to treat everyone the same. We want to be rewarded for our efforts. Everything is a transaction. Transactions, they will not help your relationship with others, and they won't help fully your relationship with God. But we like transactional God. We like a transactional, unfortunately, relationships and even transactional friendships. They're unfortunate reality. I had a conversation with a friend of mine this week who has a pool and enjoys having people over at their house, specifically his family members. And he mentioned that, you know what, I have these, my family members over time and time again, and yet never have any of them ever invited him to their house. I mean, that's got to hurt. But that's what I call a transactional mentality. He cannot change his family, but he can change his mind and come to change his transactional mentality. I mean, the greatest thing for the human heart, the greatest thing for your understanding of God is to leave behind transactions. It takes work. No, I mean, we are so we're immersed in transactions that we see everything with transaction. It takes work, but it can happen. I'll tell you a few ways it happens in my life. I don't pray for surgeries to go well anymore. If I pray that all the individuals who are working towards the surgery, that they would use their God-given talents and abilities. And I give God thanks because these people have chosen to help, heal, cure. I give God thanks for that. I think God wants every surgery to go well. I don't pray any longer for poverty to end. God knows that God wants poverty to end. I don't need to tell God that. Instead, I have to do my part in creating a just society. I have to use my mind and my resources, my voice and my hands to, as the sign says, do God's work. I don't pray for world peace. I don't pray to God for world peace. If I do pray, and if you've heard me pray for world peace, it's for you to hear it, not God. World peace is a human thing. A transactional understanding of God or transactional relationships, they do not create life. There is another way. The other way is the freedom to act regardless of it being reciprocated. The freedom to act from your heart and not expect anything in return. The freedom to start work at 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock and not compare myself to what other people are getting paid. That's a beautiful freedom. And it becomes instead work that I choose because I want to help others. Boy, that mentality has really helped me personally in not keeping score, in not looking over my shoulder. Because keeping score, watching others, is transactional. Human nature, yeah, I understand that. Human nature, we always expect something in return. And unfortunately, sometimes we can get to the point where someone does something very nice for us and we have to figure out a way to pay them back. What's wrong with a sincere thank you from the heart? So I challenge you this morning to take this parable of the vineyard worker, the vineyard owner and the workers to heart. I challenge you to live with it. For me, it does volumes to motivate me to act freely from my heart, free of getting anything in return, of not comparing myself to others, and removing transactions from my relationship with others and with God. After all, the God that Jesus talks about is not a capitalist. Amen.